Hey guys, it's Crossfade back here and everything. I'm doing another deck profile. This time I'm doing it on Todoroki II. At least this is my take on the character. I think this guy is. I know people have put him in like sideboard tiers before, which I get because you can the stun is crazy on him. But I think this character actually has pretty crazy potential. Yeah, let's just go and get right into the deck profile. The first most hottest take of the deck is I'm running two copies of Frog Lashing, and I know people are probably gonna wonder why, and that's just because for me off of this water deck, we're not flipping as many of our foundations as fast as you would want to run 4x of this card. I think if you ever want to get really aggressive, you could easily sideboard into Asui and sideboard in two more copies of this attack, and you feel completely fine. Um, but this deck is going to be utilizing different Asui tech that people haven't really been running much anymore, and that's why I'm only running that as a two of. I'm running three copies of Ice Storm. Um, the fourth one would be in the sideboard if I had it. I don't do sideboards in my decks because it's pretty open to interpretation at that point for what you want. But just two mid block breaker two. It kills people obviously. This card's like a six. This card's a four difficulty six low six with stun two in Todoroki 2. So it's like yeah, the card's just good. I've got three copies of the Grasping Tape Toss. This card's great, right? This card gets stun three. This card gets +2/+2 with my character, so it's a four mid for seven. That if you don't block it, I commit something. So now I've committed four of your things if you just take this seven damage. And it's got a really powerful deadlock enhance of just sniping two things. Um, Another one of the cards that I think that you could put up to 4x if you wanted to have extra deadlock hate in your deck. The rest of the attacks are all 4x's. 4x of Giant S-Wall. This card I think is insane in Todoroki 2. Just be able to start off your turn with stun 4 is great. If you have the extra momentum, you then get to stun 6 them from two attacks. And it's really hard to defend through that at that point. It also just gives us more low attacks. We've already got three copies of Ice Storm, so having this and four copies of Giant Ice Wall and four copies of Tongue Whip just is like it overloads the low zone at that point. I don't need to introduce Tongue Whip at all. This card's crazy. This card's crazy. Being able to stuff their board and everything. But the what I think is technically spice, but I think is really good, is the Amphibious Ambush. Being able to stuff their card pool again with this after your tongue whip, and then being able to add this tongue whip into our momentum as Todoroki 2 to then pick it back up with Todoroki and replay it, I think just has crazy value, right? You're stuffing. They have three cards in their pool at least at that point. Um, so this is upwards of like 20, 25 damage just on turn two alone if you open up with just tongue whip and just amphibious ambush. Um, so obviously there are ways to play around it, because there's like forcing surrenders and things like that. But the decks that aren't running those, I think you can just like kind of stomp over almost because of that. But that's my attack lineup. This one is a bit beefier than my last one. It's 20. I think the reason why I'm a higher list on this one is Water just has a lot of really good cards. And I'm not as like I don't need to go in as hard in this deck either, in my opinion. I think it's fine to play this deck even almost a little bit slower because I think you can eventually get there just between the amount of stuffing from all the cards, the amount of stun that you have access to. I think you can force through. Onto the foundations, we're running one copy of Face Shield. Um, for the decks you need it against, great. For the decks you don't need it against, this card doesn't do anything at all. If they're not running a lot of throws, this card just sits in your hand. So the four checks are already pretty slotted up. So that's why I'm only running one copy of Face Shield and I'm only running one copy of Self Assured. Um, Card's great. You casually get to draw sometimes like 3-4 cards off of it, and you get to full block something no matter what. But I don't think you ever need any more than that. Like I said, the four check spot is already pretty contested on water between Walklings and Creeper Realizations. That there have to be cuts somewhere, and I think these are the cuts. I'm running only one defrosting, and that's because I'm running other three diffs in this deck. Uh, If I was running under Fire or Order, I'd be running more because of its combo with Heroic Lineage. Um, but I think for now, just the one copy of it, just to have it out is fine. But we don't really want to turn through our deck a whole lot either. I'm running two copies of Irrefutable Force of Nature. It's just a good card overall. It helps me deal with some of the problems they have on board. I'm running two copies of Frozen, just extra ways to commit down their board through my character. We're running two copies of Walkling. Again, this deck obviously is pretty defensive, and there's not a lot of ways to omni-block stuff, but I think having the 28 life, being able to pick up your momentum as well, so you have a lot of blocks on hand, you don't need as many copies. And again, there's already 4 checks in the deck all, as is, so the cuts have to be made, so I don't think you ever need a three copies of it. The other three foundations that I'm running are Sticky Balls at a 2x and Rescue Completed at a 2x. I feel really bad having multiple of these in my opener. And so to prevent that, we've just kind of slimmed down the numbers. We've kind of split the middle. You could probably do this any number of ways of like 3-1 or 3-1 or 2-2 between these. But I like having the 2-2 split down the middle, just having the access. I've always been about having options in my decks. We're running two copies of Surviving the Final as well. It's just an extra speed hate. It's a 0 diff, but the deck actually has a pretty decent number of speed hate as is that I don't think you need to have more than this. And plus the 0 diff it has this and gotcha as well already that I don't think we need to run 9 0 diff foundations in the deck. But Desperate Times is a 3x. It can commit their stuff on defense if they're playing like Passing the Torch, or if they're just drawing cards on their turn, then you can get them committed down. So that way, you have less things to worry about on your turn when you go in. 3 copies of Gotcha. This card is probably the easiest one to get cut. Sorry. This card is probably the easiest one that we can cut because there's not any reliable way that we're committing it other than Rescue Completed, and it just being some like very slight stun hate. But it's a 0 diff, it's a 2 low block, so I think the card is just fine at a 3. But once we start getting more like that, even that 0 diff that Aizawa just got previewed, you could even put some copies of that in for this because it's very good. We're running 3 copies of Tape. We have a lot of obviously always have a lot of mid blocks, but like you want to be able to change things to mid whenever you want and wall cling them or be able to just block in general. So we have 3 copies of Ice Gliding in the deck. It's extra speed hate on it. Or it's extra speed pump as well on your turns if you need to force some damage through. But the card's always been pretty good, I think. I'm running 3 copies of Creepy Realization. It's another one of those cards that I don't think we really need a whole lot of introduction for. It's just good DR, or it's good extra damage pump as well. Against the Momos and the Birds of the world, this just always gets to clear out their damage. I'm running 3 copies of Graceful Maneuvers. Another just solid piece that I think that I have of Speed Hate in the deck. You often can block, 1 or 2 attacks, and then this is suddenly -4 speed on a move. The last 2 are my 4Xs. I'm running 4 copies of First Villain Encounter. And the reason why I'm running 4 copies of this is because I really want to see it because of our optimal play of Tongue Whip into Amphibious. Is that having the -1 difficulty just goes a long way because it's hard for us to string long unless we have a lot of foundations. And so this just helps string a little bit better. To where it's okay that we can play Tongue Whip Amphibious because it lines up that well. We check our 5s and we don't have to commit anything. And then the attack after Amphibious is just another 5 because it's another Tongue Whip. So it's just a card that I want to see. Same with this one. Like I said, this deck is a bit more mid-range. Like it's not as all-in as my other deck that I showed off. So having 4 copies of this, be able to pick back up our resources, like being able to breaker to them and then pick it back up, and then breaker 2 of them later on as well. Just it shuts down turns. So I think seeing Struggling with Studies is a way you want to go. And yeah, that's it for my Water Todoroki 2 list. Like I said, I like the ambush. I know a lot of people that have played this character just forego the ambush completely. They play on like a completely different symbol. Um, but I think being able to stuff their card pool, get that extra incremental speed, and then just get a bunch of damage as well because there's so many cards in their pool, it just goes a really long way. Um, if you like the video, please like and comment down below on maybe like another profile that you want to see next. I'm going to try and do a lot more, at least for my takes on decks. If you haven't already subbed to the YouTube channel, please sub to the channel. It's very much still in the works. Please ignore it. I have long not been doing anything with YouTube for a while, but with all of the rise of My Hero, I've really wanted to try and get in to at least make something for the community. Um, whether that be deck profiles, gameplay videos, anything like that. And then yeah, and then catch me on twitch.tv/crossfade if you happen to go by there. Follow me on there. I go live. I'll go live with gameplay. I'll go live with other games just in general. But I love talking anything. So with that said, you guys have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.